Well, hey, welcome to your next week. Today we're going to be in chapter 8, so it's week 10, chapter 8. I did want to start off today by just saying that I am a little disappointed with the YouTube video situation. Um, I know that's a tough. I know it's a tough thing. I mean, it's a tough new learning thing, but this is a police technology course. And so when you took it, I would hope that you would think I'm going to be dealing with technology in the law enforcement world. And YouTube's one of those things. I mean, YouTube videos are used in many different aspects beyond just police technology reviews that we as law enforcement officers should be watching. Also, evidence. These YouTube videos, kids are videotaping assaults and things like that. So we need to know those aspects. And I'll just be honest with you. If and one or two of you did this, but if I were to be getting emails 2 weeks before the project was due, or a week and a half before the project was due, saying, "Hey, I can't really figure this out. Can you help me?" That'd be one thing. But on Sunday, just to be inundated with emails saying, "Hey, I can't get this to load." I didn't give you any assignments that week except for just a discussion board posting because I wanted you to be able to take some time and load up a 10-minute YouTube video. And I get it, stuff happens, so I mean, I get that. I also get procrastinating until last minute. You have no idea how many submissions I submitted at 11:58 when I was working on my graduate degree. So I get that. As an aspect of it, but I also think that we need to be responsible and held accountable for failing when we procrastinate and it doesn't work out for us. I'll grade. I mean, if you submitted it and came in a little bit late, I'll grade it. You'll lose some points for that. But I just wanted to express to you, I mean, it is a police technology class. And I do expect, I think I'm a pretty easy instructor as far as, easy to work with and, being reasonable. Good example is, the quiz. Lots of instructors only give people 1 day to take their quiz, and they only open up for 1 day. No, I could have said, oh, well, you know what? Yeah, the mistake was mine, but I'm only going to open it up for the rest of the week. But no, I'll give you an extra week with it to make sure that you get it done. So, I was a little disappointed, to be honest with you. I expected it, but I didn't expect so much of it. To be overwhelmed with the inability to handle the video. So, anyway, just kind of keep that in mind for your next assignment. Hopefully we'll get squared away. So let's get past that, and we'll talk about chapter number 8. So we're going into kind of like some agency systems and stuff. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is pricing for these agency systems. I kind of disagree with how the book deals with pricing. They talk about tier pricing, and that big agencies are going to have this one system, and small agencies are going to have this system. I don't see that. What I'm seeing happen now is that there are some big players out there now, and they're kind of taking over the market. ARMS is one of those players. And so now what they're doing, so ARMS is a good example. So my agency is paying, we paid $50,000 for our report writing system based on the number of officers that we had and the population we serve. An agency smaller than mine may only pay $5,000 for that exact same report writing system. And an agency, a New York City Police Department might pay $12 million for that report writing system. And so they're really going into that tier approach because let me tell you what they've realized. They've realized that a large percentage, off the top of my head, I want to say 90% of law enforcement agencies have less than 10 officers. So if you don't do a tier pricing and you just write this great computer software you sell it to NYPD, you're missing 90% of your market. You could be picking up all those little tiny police departments. So that's one style of pricing. The other thing that I saw happen in the state of Ohio that if I had any control over anything, I'd do this nationwide. So Ohio's Attorney General did a great thing, and he took a bunch of money, and he said instead of all these little police departments paying $5,000 here and $20,000 here and $100,000 here for report writing systems, I'm going to take all your money together, and you're not going to pay me. I'm going to take money from the state, and we are going to develop a great system within our own system, our own report writing system, and then we're going to give it to you for free, and all that information will be shared. So when I at Marietta enter in information into the system, my friends over at Bellevue, Ohio can see it. My friends over in Cambridge, Ohio can see it. Anybody can see it because we're all sharing this great big report writing system that's really nice. And so I like that. And also some departments didn't go with it. I was surprised. I'm surprised. I'm still surprised by it. Because it doesn't have all the bells and whistles. You get what you pay for, and you're paying nothing, right? But the system's clearly developing over time. And I've been very impressed with it. So I think it's a great strategy. I think it's a great technique. So that's the tier. That's my version of the tier approach. The book talks a little about different styles of tiers, but that's my version of it. So the criminal justice information system, is it is not the RMS, report management system. So in the law enforcement world, you and I are going to be using the RMS system, report management software, report management system, and that's where we type our reports into. The criminal justice information system, that's the totality of everything. That's everything getting put together. Because here's the truth. The court doesn't call us to let us know what happened with the little Johnny's marijuana case. We file our report, and we never hear anything about it unless we had to go testify about it, And so the RMS system doesn't control that. The RMS system is one piece of the criminal justice management system. And so the criminal justice management system kind of keeps all that into one big piece and tracks it. A lot of agencies don't have it, A lot of agencies, they just stick with the RMS system, and nobody ever talks to each other, and nobody wants to go in together and purchase a system like that. And so you never know what happens to your case, unless you look it up yourself, So I mean, there's obviously a benefit to having that all-in-one inclusive. You also don't miss as much stuff, So if with that criminal justice system, when it's all tied together, and the probation officer doing his pre-sentencing investigation, his PSI, they'll have access to all that information about previous arrests and those kinds of things very easily. Because I mean, sometimes it's not always on the state system. So if I run what is called a CCH, a criminal history check, on somebody, yeah, it's going to show me all of their convictions, but it's not going to show me all of their arrests necessarily. Sometimes it shows me some, but it doesn't show me all of them, because maybe the agency is entering it into the state system or whatever. So having a system kind of is inclusive and communicates with the local city does help to catch some of those misses. Then the system goes back into talking about digital and analog radios. We had that conversation. I showed you a digital radio compared to an analog radio. So we had that talk. One thing I was thinking about as I was reading this section, especially when we got into privacy, is the fact that digital radios are able to encode things a little bit more as far as encrypting over the voice channels. So a lot of people don't have digital radio scanners, and so your traditional scanner won't pick up a digital radio signal. And so that's some of the advantage to moving to the digital is that and of course that doesn't mean people can't pick it up still, but it's an advantage to it. You can also scramble it a little bit easier. So it comes over jarbled when people have scanners. So why is that important? Well, think about what we're saying over the radio, okay? If somebody doesn't have a driver's license, up until recently, if somebody didn't have a driver's license, I'd take their name and date of birth, and I'd radio it over to the dispatcher, and the dispatcher would then send me back their name over the radio, name, date of birth, address, driver's license number, social security number, all that stuff, right? So talk about identity theft, man. All they gotta do is sit there with a pen and paper and listen to the radio. So I know the state of Ohio, we got rid of requesting social security numbers. So then you just need, name, date of birth, and driver's license number. That makes it a little bit harder to get, identity theft from. It's still possible, and so now we're doing a lot of it to the computer, and that information is just being transmitted to the computer. Or these digital radios, you can transmit it right to the digital radio screen, and so it kind of cuts down on the chatter, the talk, and also it increases security a little bit. So then, speaking of security, we get into the right to know versus the need to know. I think the best example is this. There was a huge debate for a while over, can I run your license plate when you drive by me? So what's the advantage of me running your license plate when you drive by me? Well, it gives me the, at least my state, your license plate's tied into your driver's license. So if you drive by me, I run your license plate, it will pop back whether or not you're a suspended driver. If you're a suspended driver, then I have the right to stop you for driving while suspended, driving under suspension. And so kind of you got to balance out the right to know and the right to know and the need to know. And so the Supreme Court in our district ruled that was public, that was in plain view. The license plate was in plain view, and we had the right to run that license plate because of that. But you do got to balance it out. It's a balancing act, man. And you do want to make sure that your government doesn't take over too many of your liberties, for sure. And that the information they're tapping into is information that they not only need to know, but they have a right to know. I mean, I need to know if someone's growing marijuana in their house. But do I have the right to know? Well, no, I have to live by the Constitution. So I can't just, while they're gone one day, I don't have the right to go to their house and search it without a warrant. I need to know if they're doing it because it will save lives, but I don't have the right to do it. So you got to balance those things out. Then we get into flagging of records, and they use a really good example because I've seen this happen, not with this specific person. So the book uses the example of running a president and what's going to happen if you run a president. And what's going to happen is you're going to get a call from the FBI, or from the Secret Service, and they're going to say, what is going on? Why are you running the president? Why? Because their file was flagged, right? And so a lot of times in the law enforcement databases, we can flag a file and be alerted when that information is ran. That's happened to me numerous times when we've ran license plate numbers of abandoned vehicles and those kinds of things. Another agency might flag it as as being a person of interest, whatever, and they get notified of when that vehicle's ran, and they get a hold of you and say, hey, listen, why did you run this? And there's another important piece of that is making sure that you're documenting why you're running this stuff, so that they do show up at your door knock and say, hey, why did you run this plate? You'll have something to say to them, so that's important. Then we get into, my favorite topic, the Freedom of Information Act, man. And so that is, as a police chief, that is one of my favorite things to talk about because it's probably one of the most abused topics and the most, one of the topics that gets cops really flustered. I mean, so here's the fact, and here's what I truly believe, is that if it is a governmental document that your tax money paid for, you absolutely have the right to see it, provided it will not interfere with an investigation or identify a victim of a violent crime, such as rape or something like that. So, but other than that, you have the right to know what your government is doing, And so a lot of people get real hairy about this. So even like when if you are in my report writing class, or if you've taken my report writing class, you know that one of your first assignments is to go to a local police department and get a copy of your report. And man, I'm telling you, every year I have students emailing me saying, they wouldn't give me a copy of just and they're not asking for a specific report. They're saying any police report. Just give me any police report about a DUI, and they won't do it. They get scared to do it. And I sit there and I think, it is a governmental document. You have to provide that information. But chiefs they just get solid, and they're not going to do it. And like I said, I get it, man. If it's interfering with investigation, if it's an open pending investigation, no. Don't give that out. You don't want to hurt your case. But once your case is closed, that's public record. That's freedom of information. And so make sure you know your freedom of information laws. Because that's what I run into all the time is chiefs that don't know their freedom of information laws. And so their first reaction is, no, you can't have that. You don't need to know it. It has nothing to do with you. Well, okay, that's great. But I'm a taxpayer, and I have the right to review this report, And so, I don't want anybody getting all up in cops' faces because I don't like that either, And so I watch those videos, and that makes me angry to see police officers, to see citizens being rude and disrespectful and egging police officers on and trying to get them to respond in an appropriate manner. Not that the officers should, but they're trying to get them to do that. But what I am going to say is when you get in law enforcement, especially if you go into administration, make sure you know that Freedom of Information Act law. I will give you a good example. I worked for a town, and so in Ohio, you have to have a records retention policy. And so that means that you have to have an outline of what records you can destroy and when. And emails are covered under that. And so you cannot hit the delete button on an email unless it falls within that record retention policy. And so I worked for an agency that didn't have one. And so the law was, the state law was, for every record you delete or destroy without a record retention policy, is a $1,000 fine. And a gentleman came in and requested 1 year's worth of emails from us. And I've been telling the city for months and months and months, you have to get a record retention policy in place, or else you're gonna fry yourself, man. And luckily, some legislators saw that people were using this as an avenue just to make money. And so they were requesting records that they knew that this was the case with us, that the city had destroyed, but the city hadn't destroyed them with malice. They just destroyed them, with ignorance. And so legislators came in and laid down some policies on what somebody could recover and couldn't recover, for damages in this case. But the city would have been held accountable for millions of dollars. The city of Cleveland lost, I want to say it was $2.5 million as a result of destroying some time card records by two employees that were suing them. And so it's just something you got to keep in mind, something to remember. So anyways, with that said, enjoy the rest of the week, and I'll see you guys next week.